On President Trump's decision to impose steep tariffs on Indian exports, steel, aluminium, and potentially more has left New Delhi searching for ways to shield its economy. Trade talks between New Delhi and Washington have been postponed, leaving India to reassess its strategy in the face of growing protectionism. Well, at the same time, the Modi government has moved forward with major reforms at home. The latest rounds of GST restructuring aims to simply cut tax slabs, cut rates on key goods, and reduce compliance burdens for exporters. Well, the goal is to make Indian products more competitive globally and soften the blow of American tariffs. India is also exploring new markets across Asia, Africa, and Europe to diversify its trade basket. But the question remains, are these measures enough to blunt the impact of Washington's tariffs, or does India risk losing ground in its biggest export market? We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the platform at this point in time is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also with us on the show. Mr. Sumit Peer, senior political commentator here as well. Major General Sudhakar Ji, senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert. And last but by no means the least, Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist, with us on the program as well. Professor Nalapat, your thoughts on India looking for, shall I say, greener and more profitable pastures, considering the fact that the standoff with the Americans is not showing any signs of easing off, sir?
Well, the reality is that, Vineet, Trump is completely unpredictable. There's no telling what he'll do next. He could double the tariffs that he's threatened, or he could cut them, or he could say, no, I'm giving a pause. Trump somehow believes that India has an outsized influence, outsized influence on President Putin's thinking. So last time around when he issued threats against India, the underlying feeling was frankly, nobody can understand, at least a lay person can understand the workings of Donald Trump's mind, that somehow the Russians will be more forthcoming with concessions or whatever if India is pressurized. So India can be used in a way as a pressure point against Russia. Well, India and Russia are good friends, but the fact is that both are sovereign nations and both take decisions in their own self-interest. They don't, they don't involve each other in determining the self-interest of oneself. They take it themselves. So I would like to say only one thing. India is not going to give up where the question of tariffs on agriculture and some other very essential items is concerned. As far as tariffs means freedom for the U.S. to export, the reality is that, in my view, there should be a social media campaign in the United States by our NRI community, focusing on, in the past, what happened during farmers' agitations, what happened during farmer suicides, and the condition of farmers, and basically the view of experts as to what would happen to farmers if such imports were allowed of U.S. Farm products. Of course, this will not be done by government of India, but I'm sure there are enough rational and patriotic individuals in the United States who would do this and perhaps place advertisements as well. But the fact is that Trump looks at social media a lot, and if he finds a negative social media reaction to whatever policy he's pursuing, he tends to have a relook at that policy. So as far as India is concerned, I think it's important to get our social media machine working in order. And I don't mean that only from the point of view of the government. I mean all of us. It should be an all citizens of all hands on deck approach to ensure that there is a huge number of messages that show that Trump would be the political loser if he imposes this kind of tariff on India. And may I say, it will be a great boon to China, which is the real threat that the U.S. is facing. Donald Trump is right when he tries to have discussions with Russia. But as far as China is concerned, he's given them a lot of leeway, forgetting the fact that it's China that's an existential threat to the U.S. and India is a friendly country. It's a member of the Quad. It signed all the foundation agreements. So, taking a wrecking ball to a country which is, working so closely with the United States in so many sensitive fields would be a wrecking ball for the US as well, including the scientific community, the tech community, the medical community, all these communities. So I think the reality is that social media must be used to convince President Trump of the error that he is making and make sure that he changes his mind. And in the meantime, assuming that he does not, the assumption that he does not, we should explore other markets because, quite frankly, the US market, for whatever goods we're talking about, it could be aluminum and steel today, it could be something else tomorrow. Under Donald Trump, is becoming very unpredictable, and this is having very unsettling consequences. The WTO has been completely smashed. The global agreement on trade and tariffs has been completely smashed by Trump. He doesn't believe in any rules except those set by himself.
Fair
So
enough,
we are
sir.
now living that kind of a world, and I think we need to prepare to ensure that we do well in that kind of world. I'd like to have one last word. I'm very sure. One thing I'm very sure of that Prime Minister Modi will not concede the interests of Indian farmers or Indian scientists or indeed India in any way. He will not make any concessions where fundamental Indian interest is concerned. Vineet.
Fair enough. Ambassador Mukherjee, do you concur with Professor Nalapat that the Prime Minister is obviously going to be looking after his own interest and the interest of his people, which he has sworn to protect before we succumb to any kind of a pressure from the Americans?
Of course, I concur with him. I'd like to remind our viewers that President Bush had tried this much earlier. Maybe it's important for us to remember that there have been efforts in the past. Bush's efforts met with failure. He had to withdraw the punitive tariffs. But there is one important nuance that I'd like to bring to the attention of your viewers, which is that President Trump is fully aware that the amount of trade that China does with Russia is much larger in volume, etc., than what India does. But he perceives India to be weak and China to be strong, which is why he's using India as his favorite punching bag and is continuously giving time to China, 3 months, 2 months, 8 weeks, etc. That shows that it's not that he's unaware. He thinks that if he punches us enough and that those punches go home, we would bring pressure on Putin and Putin would be pressured. He is making some very fundamental strategic errors. First of all, we are not a punching bag. We are a nation of 1.4 billion proud people of a nation that goes down millennia. Secondly, this is not the first time that the Americans have tried to pressure us. They tried to pressure us when we were much weaker during the time of Bush. We never caved in. And in this particular case, and I'm sure Dr. Sharad Kohli will elaborate because he's already said it in an earlier program, we are growing at the rate of 6.5%. And leading economists, including Dr. Kohli, have calculated that if he goes through with the worst, then our GDP growth rate would be affected between 0.2 to 0.5%. We would still grow at 6%, if I got him correctly. Secondly, Trump has made a very ambiguous remark, typical of Trump. He says, I understand that India is no longer buying Russian oil. Now, is that because he's trying to find a small place to squeeze himself into a corner so that he does not impose the extra 25%? Or is he trying to give a hint to India to make an announcement before he announces, like he did for the ceasefire? I am pleased to announce to all of you that India has succumbed to my pressure and has stopped buying Russian oil, which is what he's perfectly capable of doing, because if he has now exceeded 35 times, he has said that he has stopped the India-Pakistan war, he is perfectly capable of announcing in a couple of days, well, I'm happy to announce that India, which my trade secretary said was being a bit recalcitrant, has now come to heel, has understood what it means to play with America. Don't play games with America. They are not going to buy oil from Russia. They become good boys. As a result, I will not impose the extra 25%. Let us presume that he does impose not 25% but 15%. It would be, as Dr. Kohli had explained, that would be a basic 10% plus 25% plus whatever extra. So we would need to definitely go in for reforms, and we would need to look for new markets. And incidentally, I would also like to add that there is confirmed information from very reliable sources that on two different occasions, the American and Indian trade negotiators went back to Trump and said, we've got a trade deal with India. Twice, not once. Each time Trump did not accept it because he wanted to bring additional pressure on us in order to pressure Putin. So these are games he's playing. It's not that he doesn't have a trade deal. He has a trade deal. He's using us as a punching bag. He is doing irreparable damage to the India-U.S. strategic partnership while treating China, the country that wants to be number one and should be actually the focus of his attention. He is pussyfooting around China because he knows that China is so strong that it can do much more damage to the American economy than we are in a position to do so right now. So I hope and pray that by 2047, when we become Viksit Bharat, people don't even think that they can punch us around anymore. Beneath.
Right. Dr. Kohli, your assessment of this entire situation, although there are telltale signs that Donald Trump may relent on adding that 25% extra that he spoke about on Truth Social.
Well, good evening, Vineet. Good evening to my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. Well, my opening title to this whole episode is Vinash Kale Viparit Buddhi. That is the classic slogan which goes behind this episode. So things seem to be getting worse. Cancellation of this trip of 25th August. The dialogue which has been going on. I completely concur with Ambassador Mukherjee when she said that he's using it as a punching bag. He thinks India is a cakewalk. What he did with Bangladesh, what he did with poor nations, I call them bicharas, Indonesia. I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect any nation, but I'm talking from Donald Trump's perspective. Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia, people who said, sir, jo bhi tariff laga do, bas band mat karo humse. He thinks India is in that category, and he's blatantly wrong, is I would say. You cannot take India for granted anymore. I don't know what perception he has about India that put India in the Brazil category. Brazil, India, both 50%. We are the two nations around the world which have been slapped with the highest tariff. 41% was supposed to be his highest slab. We have somehow crossed that slab. So he's formed a new slab for us. This is what we do when we want to punish sin goods, when we want to discourage sin goods in GST. We put them in 49, 50%, 52% when we want to discourage. So say that you don't want to do trade with us. Why are you imposing tariffs? I think a better way for President Trump would be that we don't want any imports from India. I think he should have just said that and ended the story once and for all. Do you think we are dying to sell to America? Yes. As Ambassador Mukherjee, reminded of my own statement, I respect her memory first of all. Yes, this will, in other words, make our goods uncompetitive. About $50 billion as far as total numbers are concerned. So what? We are here to look for other markets. India, Commerce Ministry in India, Vineet, is already on a task to locate alternate markets. And Prime Minister and some of the ministers of the cabinet have been very categorical. They may not have named President Trump. If from the Red Fort, ramparts of Red Fort, Prime Minister said, let's go Swadeshi. And in one of his earlier speeches, he said, ye dadagiri nahi chalegi. You can't bully us. We are not sitting in a classroom where, one big boy is trying to bully. I think President Trump has to come out of his schooling days when probably he was a bully or whatever, he was. I don't know. He has to come out of that mindset. He has to grow up, I would say. I'm sorry to say that, but he has to grow up because this pressure tactic is not going to work. And let me also tell you, we need something. This is not about Russian oil. This is not about agri-dairy. This is about ego. there is in 3 letters, this is an egoistic device, because he says whatever I said. Why did India not accept it? When I said, there's a big I in inverted commas. How dare a country like India, a country which is probably a land of snake charmers, a country which is overpopulated, a country with so many poor people, the kind of impression that he carries in mind, ye bichare, how dare they don't agree to what I'm saying. I think this is thus a fight of ego. It is not about, if it was about Russian oil, then China was ahead of us. If it was about Russia, then America by itself has shown 50% growth in the imports, which he expressed his ignorance. I'm sorry, I don't know. We are exporting from Russia. How can he not know that $3 billion of export has been happening from Russia? So this is neither about Russian oil. Now I'm getting increasingly convinced, Vineet, this is not about Russian oil. This is not about agri-dairy. This is about the ego, that how dare a country like India, he probably looks at our per capita and so and so. What he forgets is that this is the fastest developing nation. This is going to overtake some of the major economies. His own economy can be in danger. And what he's also forgetting, that there is a very strong Indian diaspora which is in America, which runs America for that matter. If you take out the techies out of America, I can guarantee you, because I'm a startup mentor myself, and in Silicon Valley, I mentor some 200 startups, and I can tell you, you can take this as an inside information, but I don't mind revealing it here, because it's just now getting down to the point where we have to open our cards. If you take out techies from America, if you take out doctors from America, if you take out the medical ecosystem of India from America, I can guarantee you America will come to a standstill, which is why I said earlier, and I would like to reiterate with your permission, it is time for that 6 million diaspora to rise now. Submit a memorandum. Let the White House PIOs, the second lady of America, she's an Indian. Let those people holding prominent position in White House rise and give a memorandum. कि साहब क्या कर रहे हो यार, थोड़ी अकलमंदी की बात करो. I think that is the time. This is high time they should be talking like that. And I'm sure he'll turn around. Although, having said that, I'd like to conclude by saying that President Trump is highly unpredictable. सुबह कुछ, दोपहर को कुछ, शाम को कुछ, next day कुछ. He's known for flip-flops. So let's not jump to conclusions too soon. But then, as is the position today, we have to respect and make a comment on that, Vineet.
All right. Mr. Sumit Peer, how are you looking at the situation? Obviously, we've covered the Russia angle, we've covered the Donald Trump unpredictability angle as well. But what about China?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. Look, when you look at this whole tariff thing, there's one thing which is common, and I've been talking on your shows for quite some time. My assessment is it was never about Russian oil. It is not about tariffs. It is basically Trump, maybe CIA, I don't know who told him. Somebody told him you have to kill this Make in India somehow. Because Make in India will replace China. Make in India will replace all your manufacturing dreams. And Making India is going to dismantle everything in the near future. And it's not autocracy. Here it's elected democracy. IPR is protected, everything is protected. It's a very transparent system, and we don't have that Chinese kind of a quality. Chale to chand tak, nahi to raat tak. What did Modi ji say? Dam kam, dam double, dam zyada. So we were going in that way. And if you look carefully, Vineet, out of 80 billion of exports to US, what he has stricken the most? Once, which help him, he has not touched that. The other part, another 45 billion, which essentially comes from Make in India, which comes from those MSMEs. He wanted to strike down that. He has struck down that because he was pushing Modi. You compromise on the interest of farmer, you compromise on the interest of dairy farmer, fisherman, and the MSMEs, which Modi said, "Main diwar ban ke khada rahega Modi." He will not let it happen. So when you don't want to do that, Mr. Modi, so let me hit you here. Because I want this thing to go. I want you to keep on looking for markets. I want your economy of scales to go. I want your base load of business to go. I want your industry to fail. I don't want manufacturing at a reliable cost and a quality to come up from India, because that will be the future of the world. Because ultimately, why do our cars sell in the whole world? They are at a very reasonable price and they are very durable. Whatever we make today, Vineet, it sells across the whole world. He knows Indians dominated pharma. He knows Indians dominated IT. There are a lot of things which we are dominating, including space. So in order to kill the baby in the bathwater, this whole thing was there. He chose the sectors to put tariffs which are essentially Make in India, vocal for local and vocal for global. Exactly those sectors are chosen. Why? Because you have been advised that kill them before they're born. And why didn't, if it was about the Russian oil, why didn't you put tariffs on Russia? Why did you say, okay, 90 din baad dekhenge? We'll see after 90 days. Why are you trying to mess with the world's largest democracy when you're the world's oldest democracy? How come your best friends are dictators of Mullah Military Alliance of Pakistan, autocrats of China, and possibly Kim Jong-un? And when it comes to the world's largest democracy, you seem to be getting on a war path with them. The idea here is you are scared of India. You are scared of the India's demographic dividend. You know India's demographic dividend is for us 70 to 100 years. You don't want them to get up. You don't want another IT revolution to happen. You don't want another pharma revolution to happen. So you are trying to hit India on all the aspects. And on the top of that, ego gets into it. It becomes a dangerous cocktail. The cocktail can be a whiskey with a water, but if you had whiskey with hydrochloric acid, that is also cocktail. But wo khatam kar degi. I mean, that is what he has done. Rather than adding water, he has added hydrochloric acid to it, and he is trying to scuttle everything. He's trying to even destroy his economy. This man is about I, me, myself. I have no remorse in calling him a narcissist. That is what he is. That is what he believes, and his flip-flops are so vociferous. Even his employees, even his staff doesn't know what is he going to talk next. Look, he made Marco Rubio, come and say, I stopped the war. His press secretaries every day saying he stopped the war. His Secretary of Defense is every day starting, he stopped the war. Now his Commerce Secretary is also saying he stopped the war. Now for the sake of God, American cabinet has become the laughing stock of the world. We used to joke about Pakistanis. I think they've beaten them on the TRP today. I think they're doing much better on the TRP than Pakistanis. Because this man wants to run it about I, me, myself. And still that white man's ego, I'm not being racist here, Vineet, but that white man's ego, I'm sitting in the White House, मैं तुम्हारी किस्मत लिखूंगा, मैं दुनिया का शहंशाह हूं, मैं बताऊंगा 140 करोड़ लोग क्या करेंगे और तुम मेरी बात सुनोगे. And you know what is his problem? There are two problems here fundamentally with India. One is what I told you. Another two problems. Look, India, we buy Russian oil, we buy Russian weapons, we also buy Israeli weapons, we also do business deals with you. We run your IT, we run your pharma, you are depending on pharma on us, our techies and our doctors make your America go. At the same time, we are the best friends with Muslims, we are part of I2U2, we have a very good relations with Jews, we have very good relation with the Islamic world also, and there is a Prime Minister whom your CIS has said, you cannot buy Modi. CIS said you cannot buy Modi. Uncompromisable. Then, there's a Prime Minister Modi, he's in I2U2. He's in BRICS, he's in Quad, he's in SCO. Modi ji is the only who has a distinction of being all these formations where she is not there, where Putin is not there, and where Trump is not there. So these two characters put together. Now that nationalistic flavor, that Swayam Sevak from Sangh, nothing to lose, मैं तो फकीर हूँ जो लूट के चला जाऊंगा. He's not like Trump who has billions, who wants to keep billions for his children. He's not like Trump who wants to cut a crypto deal with the Pakistanis. After Pahalgam carnage, 5 days after that, Trump's family funded business was in Pakistan, signing MOU with Shahbaz and the failed field marshal. I mean, that is the reality of the world about his cryptos. Modi ji doesn't have something like that. So that makes India very unpredictable for him, very dangerous from him. So what has been advised? Kill them, scuttle them, break them. Don't let us cross 5 trillion because at 5 trillion you can't do anything to us. And at 8 trillion, we write the rules of the game. He doesn't want you to reach there. That's what Modi ji said. हम तीसरी नंबर की इकोनॉमी बहुत जल्दी पहुंच रहे हैं. That was a direct message to Trump. Come, do whatever you want to do. We are becoming number 3rd economy by GDP very, very fast. अपने सारे घोड़े खोल दो. Do whatever you can do. You cannot scuttle us. Look, Vineet, $40 trillion out of $40 billion out of $4 trillion. 1%. 50 countries in the world. We can divide the risk. We'll overcome it. We'll have PLIs. We'll have this duty drawbacks. We'll do something. We have around 700 billion in the bank. We'll not fail. But it is important to fail the psychophancy of this man who thinks he still rules the world and he's some reincarnation of a Christ.
All right. We also need to get General Sudhakarji's point of view into this. General Sudhakarji, well, let us also not forget that Trump is trying to undermine BRICS as well. What if he actually ends up solidifying, what the BRICS has been trying to do, and that is also a lot to do with de-dollarization?
Look, if you don't mind me, I'd like to say that India...
Sir, I beg your pardon, sir. That question is for General Sudhakarji, sir.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I beg your pardon, sir, but I will let you talk once he finishes. General Sudhakarji?
Yeah, Vineet, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show and compliments to very distinguished and eminent panelists. Good question you have asked. Trump is middle of nowhere. He's drowning. Even a blade of grass, hope and pray that he takes shelter and takes recourse to some kind of support to survive, a clear indication is that the latest meeting in Alaska actually speaks volumes about his body language, his lack of self-confidence, and Putin having actually started the process of deal. Whether it will come through or not, it's anybody's guess, on his own terms, on Russia's terms. Because not only USA, the entire Western alliances has gone beyond all doubts to prove that the concept of Russo-Ukraine war has taken a deep beating. Had they agreed in April 2022, when the Prime Minister of Britain went rushing to stop, not to stop the war, had Zelensky put his foot down, perhaps this 20% captured land would have been saved. So why am I giving this? I'm actually replying to your question of BRICS and de-dollarization. Today, the dollar dominance, at one point in time, it used to be 86%. During pandemic, it came down to 54%. Now it is bounced back to 59%. Economic experts, they say, if it goes below 50% dominance in the international market as a reserve currency, well, the doomsday is writ large. It is going to manifest in any form, at any time, at any place. Having said this, let me reinforce my articulation by saying today, USA is in deep trouble of $37 trillion of debt, plus 5 trillion of BBB. If you add them together, 42 trillion, what it means is that every year USA is required to dole out something to the tune of $1.2 trillion US dollar simply for interest or debt servicing. Plus the revenue required, the generation is around 4 trillion and the administration running requires 6 trillion. There is a deficiency of 2 trillion, 2 trillion here, 1 trillion there, 3 trillions are actually deficient in US today. How much of dollar printing can it do? Congress has exhausted all its options to print, give permission and approval for printing dollars. Having said this, today BRICS has got 11 members. There are 32 about to join. Countries have decided to use their constituency or the country's currency. When I say this, I wish to actually highlight, if time permits, 2-3 things. It will be of relevance for the panelists also to mull over.
Quickly,
we
sir.
must forget about the issue that Donald Trump has got a political hero. Who's the political hero in US? Some name, if I respect my memory, William McKinley, maybe Dr. Srivastava, he will be able to chip in later. This gentleman, when he was the president, he also tried similar kind of strategy to enhance tariff to such a level without raising the income tax, run the federal budget purely out of tariff. Couldn't succeed. US was actually heading into trouble. Now, why go that far? Take the example. You see, WTO, regardless whether US actually accepts it or not, honors the principles and rules and regulations of WTO or not, still WTO is WTO. We are the people who have created in 95 or 97. USA itself was playing a lead role. WTO rule says that any country which imposes arbitrary tariff, the country which is affected, that is India, is entitled to actually go in for retaliation. Why hasn't India retaliated? Look back to Trump's first tenure, 1.0. In the first tenure, Trump had used and legislated a terminology that India is a tariff king. And along with that, it had imposed 25% of tariff on aluminium and steel. What happened in 2019? Same India, our country, we mustered martial law courage. We imposed a retaliatory tariff of almost about similar percentage on 28 products, including Apple and almond. It was only Joe Biden who came during his tenure that he lifted the tariffs. So similarly, take another example of Laos. Laos is a country which was made to bring down the tariff of USA to zero. All the products being imported from USA was brought down to zero, while the tariff imposed on the products going exported from Laos was actually raised to 40%. Are we equivalent to Laos? Doesn't India have a standing in the spirit of its existence? Don't we have self-confidence? Today, there is an acronym. I was in USA for about 2 months. In the social media and informal circles, they have coined a terminology called TACO. What is TACO? Trump always chickens out. You will chicken out only with the person, with the country.
Fair enough, sir. Unfortunately,
got
we've
the
run out of
concept to
time. I
start-
beg your pardon, sir, but unfortunately, we have in fact shot over the time that we have been allocated. But I appreciate everybody's point of view and perspective. We take a short break now. Be right back.